G'day, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Insight NFL show. We've got some news to cover tonight. We've got a lot of rebuilding to cover as well tonight as well. I'm really keen for this episode. This is one of the most exciting episodes that I've probably had in the history of NFL football, to be honest. I love talking dynasty. I love talking rebuilding, strategies behind it, and everything that comes in between. But tonight, my main man's back in the booth, Mullin. How you going, mate? I know you've got some troubles over there with the cyclone, but how are you traveling?
Yeah, getting there, Maverick. Cyclone Alfred is just teasing us at this point, just taking his time to, kind of move through and kind of be done. But we're still here, surviving. Nothing's going to be stopping us from continuing with this content. Touch wood that nothing kind of happens over the next couple of hours. But very excited. Yeah, it's going to be a great show. This is going to be a good one for those guys out there with dynasty teams that really don't know what to kind of do. They're hands up or in the air, kind of sitting on the fence. Hopefully this one gives you guys a bit of insight and can help improve your leagues for 2025.
Yeah, this one's massive, mate. I think these type of episodes are really crucial in setting up the future. How to go about it. If you're on the fence and thinking why I should do it, or how I should go about it, or when the right time is to pull the trigger, this is probably the episode to listen to because we're going to go through all scenarios where you can possibly just pull that trigger and then decide it's time to do it. But mate, let's start off with the news. It's been a bit of news over the last, let's say, few days or so. But let's go with number one, mate. The oldest news we had for the week was Deebo Samuel was traded to the Commanders for a day 3 pick. It was a 5th round pick. What do you think of that one, mate?
I think it's a bit of a win-win for both teams. For the most part, Deebo clearly wanted to get out, and there was a bit of a chatter. He was on a podcast and he was throwing slander at Brock Purdy, saying that he can't wait to play with a proper QB or something now. But a 5th round pick for the Commanders, that's great. They needed another veteran presence in that receiving core for Jaden Daniels. And I don't think with Deebo's role, it's not really going to affect Terry McLaurin too much. If anything, it might open things up a little bit more for him. So a bit of a win-win for both sides. But yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I think it's a win-win as well, mate. It's going to be interesting to see how Deebo gets used in this new scheme. Obviously, he's been a gadget player for a lot of his career. I wouldn't say a glorified gadget player. I think he's got some receiving ability. Obviously, we've seen it before. He's obviously really, really good at being a top-tier receiver when he wants to be. Getting in shape would be obviously a starting point. And staying healthy would be the other part of it too. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what this offense is going to look like for 2025 and beyond, because we saw Jaden Daniels just have a all-time rookie year with Terry McLaurin with pretty much his first ever half decent QB as such. And they went nuts. So I'm a bit worried about guys like Austin Eckler now. This might affect him. But on the other side of things as well, I really like Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall might be the biggest beneficiary out of this. I'm not sure when Ayuk is back, but yeah, I really like Pearsall's outlook for dynasty moving forward, really.
No, I agree. And they were even talking about moving Ayuk as well, but I'm not too sure what kind of teams are going to be willing to take on that huge contract, especially after that nasty knee injury he sustained. I really like Ricky Pearsall as well. I think the sky will be the limit for him and the opportunity will be there. I also don't mind Juwan Jennings. I think he's going to be a bit sneaky. People out there, don't sleep on Juwan. I think if he steps into that number 2 role, especially with Ayuk out for at least probably 6 weeks to 8 weeks to the start of the season, he might pick up, and he already has that connection with Brock Purdy. So yeah, a lot of fantasy players stocks on the rise.
Well said, mate. Obviously George Kittle's still in the house too, so that's a
beast,
big
yeah.
uptick as well. Yeah. T. Higgins, mate, he's signed the franchise tag 2nd year in a row. This one's sort of interesting. I'm not too sure what they're going to do there. I mean, it keeps him off the market is probably one thing. So they've got time between now and training camp, let's say, for argument's sake, to sort of work out a long-term deal. I'd be shocked if T. Higgins plays on the franchise tag next year. I mean, it's like a $25 million contract, I believe, and it's all fully guaranteed. So that's the upside to it. But the downside is if you get an injury or you do a knee or an Achilles or anything sort of serious, it might hurt your stocks moving forward. But I think this is positive. They've pretty much already come out and said they want to try and work out a long-term deal with Higgins. It's going to be hard because they've got a lot of holes as it is. So I'm interested to see how this one plays out.
Fingers crossed that they can come to an agreement for T. Higgins. He deserves all that cash. You can just see down the stretch of last year how much better he made that team. He made Jamar Chase better, made Joe Burrow better. And it's clear if he did go to another team, he could definitely be an alpha wide receiver number one. So, yeah, let's hope that they can kind of come to an agreement this time around because, as we know with T. Higgins, he has been copping that injury bug in his career. So he definitely wants to sign something long-term and shore up a bit of long-term money for him. But, yeah, fingers crossed for T. Higgins.
The scary thing for me with T. Higgins, though, is that this could turn pretty sour where they can't reach an agreement. He decides he doesn't want to play, and there's a massive holdout dispute. And it's happened before. It'll happen again. And I just hope that this won't be another situation where it happens again. But anyway, we'll watch this space. Other big news that dropped this morning, mate. There was a lot of rumors over the last week of DK Metcalf. There was, so much trade rumors as such. The Packers were interested and made a few phone calls. But now DK has officially requested a trade. And this is huge. This is really, really huge. I mean, the Chargers have already come out and said they're really interested in and looking to make a move for him. Apparently, they tried to make a move last year for him, so they're going again. But this time around, mate, I think he's on the move. I don't think he's going to go back to Seattle. He's going into the last year of his contract, so he wants to get paid and wants to get paid ASAP too. So once he gets traded, he wants to sign that new contract. Is there any landing spots that jump out to you off the page straight away?
Well, Chargers, just to jump on your coattail there, I think that'd be an absolute great landing spot. We've seen what Justin Herbert kind of did with Mike Williams. Kind of similar layout of what kind of Metcalf brings to the table. Nowhere near as good, but he can kind of stretch that field and catch those long bombs when he needs to. But besides the Chargers, I actually don't mind the Cowboys as a little smoky.
Yeah,
I think.
See that.
Yeah, just to kind of slide that in there while you've got your Cowboys hat on. I wouldn't mind that, honestly. I've got a lot of Dak Prescott shares, so a bit biased, but I think he'd fit that system really well. I think anywhere, honestly, where he goes, he's going to make an impact, and it's going to be an improvement on his fantasy finish last year.
Yeah, and on that DK to Cowboys, mate, they've been also linked to Cooper Kupp as well. There's been rumors that they might try and go for him too. So they're obviously trying to shore up this number 2 wide receiver position with possible rumors of drafting Genty as well. So, mate, if they had an offensive, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, or Cooper Kupp with Genty in there, it'd be pretty fun to watch that one with Dak, who loves to sling the ball. Not great, but slings the ball. That could be one to watch. But no, I personally think that the Packers would be a really good spot for DK Metcalf, mate. They need an alpha number one. They've been crying out for that for, I don't know, ever since Devontae left, really. And they possibly could have a reunion there, might I add. But that's probably the move that makes sense the most for the Packers to make over this offseason, I reckon. On top of that as well, we had news that Lockett has also been released as well. So Adam Schefter put out a little tweet this morning and said that, the Las Vegas Raiders could be a nice landing spot there for him with a wide receiver needy team. Pete Carroll, obviously, having a link with him, playing with him for so long. That's probably another one to watch too. But, he's still got a bit of life left in him, Tyler Lockett's not much, but I still think he might be able to give someone a bit of a chop out.
Yeah, and he could improve that Raiders team. Like, they don't really have much there. He could help out Brock Bowers kind of in that receiving, kind of give him a bit of insight to say, and kind of help him progress in terms of his NFL career, rather. so a bit too keen for the Broncos tonight. But yeah, no, it makes the most sense for him to go to the Raiders. That Pete Carroll connection's already there, so hopefully he finds a spot, and he would make an improvement to a team like that. So
he would, yeah, absolutely. Devontae Adams has been officially released. This one's interesting, mate. I don't know how to look at this one. I don't know if he's going to be in the pocket of Aaron Rodgers and moves wherever he goes, or he might decide he might go on his own way. Or, as I said before, a Packers reunion makes sense for him as well if they don't get DK Metcalf. But, Devontae is still playing at a really, really high level in the league. Yes, he's a little bit old. I think he's 30, 31, but still got plenty of, a couple of years left in the tank to really show you some really good numbers, I reckon.
No, I agreed. And Devontae, we saw what he did at the back end of last last year. I personally don't think Devontae is going to be chasing a ring. I think he's purely just after individual stats at this point. I think he mentioned it last year. That individual greatness is something that he really prides himself on. So I honestly could see him going to the Raiders again because there's been talks of Rodgers going there. I know he's just kind of he left there, and not a lot of times that people would go back to that situation. But new coaching regime, new kind of set out. Tom Brady's there. It's a very attractive place at the moment. They've got a whole heap of cap space, but yeah, he's definitely has a couple of years left in the tank.
Yeah, I reckon he's going to be following Rodgers, mate. I really
Yeah.
do. I think it comes in as a package deal. The Giants have been linked to Aaron Rodgers at the moment too, which is very, very interesting. I don't know how that's going to work out, but hey, Malik Neighbors, Devonta Adams offense looks really, really good on paper with Rodgers throwing him the ball. So, Rodgers is a bit washed, but you know what I mean. It's still on paper looks really, really nice
compared to what they had this year. Oh, they had some garbage. So,
oh yeah, a lot of backup third stringers on the roster throwing the pill, and it was bad. Christian Kirk also got released this morning as well. That's going to be an interesting one. I don't know what is his best avenue, but I still think he's got a bit of life to bring. I thought he's best when he's healthy. Still really good, but he's currently the wide receiver 61 in Dynasty leagues. I think he's 28 now or something like that. So he might give something to I don't think he's going to be number one anywhere, but definitely number two would be a solid number two somewhere else.
He would be. And it's a very, with the draft class that we have coming up, it's a very lackluster in terms of wide receiver talent. So there's a lot of wide receiver needy teams out there in the league. So I'm sure Christian Kirk will get scooped up. And yeah, he definitely does have, a bit more to give. And we even saw, I think he started a couple games last year, and I think he had a 20-point week and like a 15 or so point week in those 4 starts or something like that. So yeah, could be a cheap buy low. But we might touch on that a little bit later.
I'm going to predict that he ends up on the Denver Broncos.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that. He'd fit in well there.
Yeah,
sure.
They're probably a solid wide receiver 2 away from getting better and better. It'll be a cheap deal. I'm just going to put it out there.
Yep.
Just going to put it out there. All right, Mullin, let's talk about it, huh? The rebuild, huh?
Let's do it.
So when I talk rebuilding, I look at 2 different scenarios. Is if you're missing playoffs, right, or sneaking into playoffs as such, you have to look at your deeper team as such. So if we're looking into your roster and it's a bit older, then it's probably time to rebuild. If it's on the up, a little bit younger, older heads around, then you can probably just, let's say, mini rebuild as such. But the way I like to look at this as well as a whole is points for, I think, is a massive, massive thing in the league. Now, we've seen it plenty of times before where points against is the reason why you're 8th, 9th, 10th on the ladder. But your points for is sitting at 4th, 5th, 6th. So your roster's okay. It's just you're getting unlucky with the results. Also, max points for, I think, is another good a good tool as well to look at too, because not only does that give you a broader view of your starting lineup, but it gives you a broader view of your bench as well. So if you're making some poor decisions on your bench that could be put into your starting lineup, then that's just a GM problem.
Agreed. And not only is it those max points for, just to touch on that, it's not only giving you a good idea on your team, it's giving you a good idea of the rest of your league. So you want to be able to, the way I see it, you want to be able to compare yourself to other people in the league, kind of figure out where you're sitting in terms of, can you compete if there's a couple of guys in your league that are clear top dogs, the 1 and 2 seed by a mile, and you're kind of just tinkering around in there, gives you a good outlook. And because you don't want to be sitting in that middle level, because you just kind of tinker around. Your draft picks next year in the rookie class aren't going to be as high as what you'd like them to be, and we know just how important those rookie values or rookie picks are, especially in that top 3 of the class, and what they can kind of do to a team. So using that max point for is definitely a good tool to have a holistic approach to where you're sitting in your league. And then, then we can kind of go down and work out the best way to go about, and what kind of strategy we need to take to improve for the next year.
Yeah, and especially when you're sitting mid-table, right? And you've been sitting there for the last 2-3 seasons, and you're wondering, what the hell do I do? I like my roster, but I'm just not beating anyone else. there's always going to be one or two teams in your league that are going to be rebuilding straight away off the bat. They're going to be non-competitive, trying to lose games. But then you're going to have those two teams at the top, maybe three teams at the top that look really, really good on paper. You just can't contend. So I think if you had a scenario like that, it is time to pull the trigger and let go of what you've got. Doesn't mean you have to trade everything away and just get all the picks in and you have nothing left, because otherwise you could get stuck into a weaker draft and you're screwed, or you get stuck into a point where you have no value on your team at all because it's just all draft picks. And yeah, that's not what you want. So going out and selling Malik Neighbors because he's got the max value is fair enough to a degree, but also he's 20 years old, so you want to be keeping him for the long haul as well. So now, first bit of advice that I can give for rebuilding teams is try and get more than one first round pick. You cannot rebuild on just one first round pick every single year. It just doesn't work. It's a slow burn. So you're trying to and maximize as many firsts as you can possibly get. If you can get 3, 4, 5 first rounders in 1 year, you can be going from bottom 3 to top 6 instantly, like that, right? Yeah, that's how I view. First off, straight off the bat, is trying to get as many first rounders as possible.
Yeah, and it could happen. You know, all you need is one really good rookie draft class, and your team is completely flipped. So, for instance, if you had 3 or 4 first round picks in last year's class, maybe you got super arsey and you managed to snag Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, all in the first round. Your team has been completely flipped from the position that it was in. You might have had a couple of more extra picks in the second or third round, and you could pick up, all it takes is for you to get a little bit lucky on those later guys. Your Bucky Irvings, your Kyron Williams, those kind of, all it takes is a couple of those hits, and the value of your roster has just drastically improved. When it comes to rebuilding, I like to look at it as a 2 or 3 year window. I don't want to think anywhere near longer than that. Probably 2 years, probably max, honestly. If you're rebuilding for 3 years, for me, I want to be in a contending spot. I don't want to be doing this forever. You know, a lot of us are paying league fees. We don't just want to keep burning that. We want to situate ourselves to be in a position to win. And the best way is to get fourth, or that I see it anyhow, is look at a 2 year window, try and work out what you need to do, move off your older guys, get those younger wide receivers or quarterbacks, get those draft picks. Even if you get further on future draft picks, the 2027 class now that we're looking at for this new season, it's supposed to be loaded. Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams at wide receiver, they're meant to be talents that are going to be up there with, Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors of last year's class. So I'm willing to kick that can a little bit further down the road, capitalize on people not really valuing those future picks probably as much as what they should, because people don't really care about something a couple years away. So taking advantage of that and trying to set yourself up for success.
Mate, absolutely, and especially when we're talking about finishing, 6th, 7th, and as I said, you might be unlucky with some matchups where teams are just dropping massive points on your head and you can't do anything about it. And sometimes you might need to go through a mini rebuild as such. Mini rebuilds are also really fun. Now, I've gone through a couple of mini rebuilds in my time of finishing 6th, 7th every year, and wondering how the hell can I just get this team better. And sometimes you just got to sell a couple of guys. That might be a guys like Jalen Waddle in his prime. Well, not in his prime, but at his peak a couple of years ago, getting maximum value at the time. And even now, like if you traded someone like, let's say, Terry McLaurin, another one who has shown massive strides in his game. He's now 28, 29. He could help a contending team out, but you want to try and get 2 first-round picks in, then bang, that's a good starting tool. And then, as I said, I've had a draft where I've had 2 first-round picks, but 8 picks in total. So I've had, I think it was like 2 firsts, 3 seconds, a couple of thirds, and a couple of fourths or whatever it was. And I somehow ended up with CJ Stroud, Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua in the 4th round, Sam Laporta, Rashee Rice. Mate, that's 5 players right there that can just put you. Yeah, I mean, you have to get lucky. You have to watch tape. You have to stay active. Sitting on your ass and just drafting players is not the way. You have to watch footage and make sure that these guys are going to be good. And they can seriously be starters for the next 5 years.
Agreed. And, to go with watching footage, if you don't have the time or whatnot, tune in to us. We're going to be breaking down and diving in and doing this research for you guys and giving you really good suggestions that we think would be great targets for rebuilding teams or mini rebuilding teams. And when we look at mini rebuilding, so I kind of see it as you're during the season. It might be week 6 or week 8. You're 2-4, 2-5. Your kind of playoff hopes are lost. Your points against, like you mentioned, Maverick, could be super high, and you could just be super unlucky with all those losses. But being that record midway through the season, it's time to move off a couple of your older assets and look to retool for future years. Might only just be a couple of pieces away.
You might be.
Yeah.
And especially on that as well. And if you're rebuilding as such, the worst thing that you can do is go out and trade running backs or draft running backs. I think running backs are pretty much like your last bit of your team that you want. They've got a shorter window in the league, running backs. I usually give them about a 5 to 6 year window of max production. I know that can go higher than that. We've seen Derrick Henry, we've seen Saquon Barkley that have exceeded that. But generally speaking, you can see 5 to 6 years of really elite talent and they start to decline. It's a hard position. It's such a bash and crash position and relies on an offensive line really to be able to succeed as well. But if I'm a rebuilding team, mate, I'm not drafting running backs. I mean, this year, for example, if you had the 101, I would be looking at splitting that 101 because that's going to be Ashton Genty. Now, I love Ashton Genty. I love his profile. I think he's going to be an elite player in the NFL, but he's not going to help you out in 2025 and beyond for a rebuilding team. So I'd be looking at splitting that pick. I'd be looking at trying to get like a 104, 105, and trying to, I suppose, maybe looking at Ted McMillan as a player coming into your team. And then on top of that, trying to get maybe a second and an additional first, because Ashton Genty has got elite talent. I mean, currently at the moment, he's ranked as the RB8. He hasn't played a snap. That's higher than Kyron Williams. So
which is insane. And I think even in dynasty circles, I like in dynasty rankings, he's been going top 4, behind Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs. And it won't feel good moving away from that 101 because Genty looks so good, looks like such a smash hit rookie straight out the gate. It's not going to feel good moving on from him, but like you said, if you can kind of trade back a little bit in that first round, Ted McMillan, absolute great target, young wide receiver. That's what we want to build our teams around. That's the core, young wide receivers, young quarterbacks. If you can, tie in a first, even like I mentioned earlier, a 2027 first. Try and throw that in there. Try and just kick that can down the road, and once that comes around, it'll be lights up.
And especially for rebuilding teams, you have to be targeting these wide receivers, these quarterbacks, especially in Superflex leagues. Like these elite QBs are hard to get. And unfortunately, in this draft, we're probably not going to see an elite QB come in. Not to the likes of the last few years anyway. I mean, Sanders might suppress or surpass any sort of expectations, but that's a maybe. So I truly believe trading out of this draft potentially and moving on to 2026 picks is also not a bad thing either, because you're not going to get quarterbacks. You're probably not going to get many wide receivers as such. You still have a few, but we're talking about maybe in the top 14, 15 picks, you might have 8 running backs compared to 4 wide receivers. This is a heavy running back class. So, I think it's one of those drafts where if you're rebuilding, this one's not really great for you, but there's other ways to get around it as well. I mean, especially when you're rebuilding, man, as I kept saying, you don't want to be winning games. So if you can go out and maybe trade your first round pick and try and get an established player, mate, Rashee Rice is not going to be playing till probably midway through the year, depending on his suspension. That's pending at the moment, and we're not too sure what's happening there. Mate, Tank Dell will cost you nothing at the moment. See what Anthony Richardson's doing. He's probably at his cheapest point at the moment, still putting up good fantasy points, but there's troubles there with his accuracy. We're not too sure if he's the long-term QB at the Colts. So maybe you can get him for a first-round pick. Bryce Young's another one who's still pretty cheap at the moment. There's plenty of options out there that you can go and trade a first-round pick for an established player that will, that won't win you matchups, and you can still rebuild along the way.
Yeah, and with that, their value will look to increase, or we can at least project that their value will increase. I know Bryce Young, definitely we can see him if they add a couple more pieces around that offense, and especially in that wide receiver room, he could look to get even better. He has sneaky little bit of rushing upside. Trey Benson was one that would be a good target. Shout out to DFAB. He's super high on buying Trey Benson at the moment. And exactly for this reason, his value is super low at the moment, especially after that James Conner re-signing, that extension. You could maybe pick him up for a early third, a mid third. And his value, all it takes is James Conner, an injury, or even after the 2025 season, Trey Benson will be there, still on that rookie contract, and his value is going to go up.
And I don't think that James Conner is going to be around much longer after 2025 either, my God. I mean, again, Trey Benson's not going to help you win games next year. So that's the whole point of rebuilding is you don't want to win games. You don't want to go out and trade for someone like a James Cook or a, let's say, T. Higgins or such. I mean, T. Higgins is great, so maybe, but we're talking more like
DK Metcalf. You wouldn't want to trade for someone like him.
DJ Moore and these guys. What else we have? George Pickens is still a little bit young. He's probably a bit cheaper, but Brandon Ayuk's another one who you could probably get for a late second rounder at the moment, who's going really, really cheap in rookie drafts. Going really cheap in dynasty leagues, should I say? Who has he's tied down to the Niners for a while. He's not going to play early on, so that's another good little cheeky target there. Larvae's the cheapest value you can possibly get at the moment. So there's options out there if you are rebuilding and you have multiple first round picks and a running back, or massive running back class, should I say? That's how I say rebuilding anyway. I mean, mini rebuilding is a completely different ballgame, but rebuilding is you want to be losing games, and as you said, you want to have a 2-year window, maybe 3 max of just absolute crap, and then build an absolute powerhouse where you can go bang. In 2 years' time, 3 years' time, I'm contending for the next 5.
And with rebuilding, you don't want to half-ass it. You don't just want to move away a couple of players and still be sitting around that, top 8 kind of position. You want to blow up as much as you can so that you're going to give yourself the best opportunity to have the 101, the 102 in next year's rookie class. You want to position yourself because, if you kind of delay it or not be all in, have one leg out, one leg in, it's not going to end too well. It's not going to be as effective as what it should be. So if you're on key with rebuilding, blow it up. Keep your young stud wide receivers, keep your young stud quarterbacks, even young tight ends. They have a long shelf life that we've seen. But you want to be moving off your veteran guys, especially in that running back room.
Mate, and especially tight ends, as you said, and I want to mention that as well. We've seen the number 1 tight end in the last 2 years come from rookies as such, or come from the rookie draft. Tyler Warren, if he was to do that this year, we probably have to have that discussion of, we've always thought that rookie tight ends are undraftable in their first, second year, and it takes them 3 years to develop. Maybe it doesn't anymore.
I think Brock Bowers, he's changed that landscape. Sam Laporta, he kind of was the first one that kind of come in off that rookie deal or that rookie year and kind of blow everything up. But Brock Bowers, I think, has solidified that. And like you said, if Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, any of those tight ends come in, if they can have that kind of production in their rookie year, a top 3 tight end overall, I think, the mindset of fantasy leagues will change.
We would have to have that bloody conversation, I reckon, for sure. Especially on QBs, mate. QBs are so big in Superflex leagues, especially in Dynasty leagues. They're extremely hard to get, especially really, really good ones. I mean, you cannot touch Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels at the moment. Probably even Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow. I'll put in that same category. Those 5 QBs, you just can't get them. There's no value on them. You say 3 first-round picks, it doesn't even start the conversation. So they're extremely hard to obtain. So this is why when rebuilding teams are down there, you got to be able to draft one of these guys. I know this year you're not going to be able to get one, but maybe in 2025 or 2026 and beyond, you might be able to get one. And again, watching tape, keeping up with everything is such a massive part of dynasty football. As I said, it never, ever sleeps, mate. It never, ever sleeps. I watch fuckloads of tape before my rookie drafts, man. I sit there for hours upon hours upon hours and watch and watch and watch because it's the only way you'll be able to have some sort of idea of what you're looking at. Mate, Amon-Ra St. Brown a few years ago was going as a mid-second rounder. Snaffled him up at 205. I loved his profile. It was ridiculously, well, even he said it was embarrassing that he went so low in the draft. And he had a chip on his shoulder. And
Yeah.
mate, again, if you watch tape, he was the man in college.
Yeah, he was. And he is such a great example of, those targets if you are staying active, because we need to, in Dynasty, these windows don't stay open forever. We need to capitalize on these windows of opportunities to buy low on targets, or you really want to manipulate the market value throughout Dynasty, because that, if you can move a mid-second for a Brandon Ayuk, his value is going to increase the next year once he starts playing again. It's guaranteed, and he'll be worth a first again, just based off that. Like, looking at your team as, even if you just kind of looked at everybody based off pick values, for instance, and all you're trying to do is manipulate that market. You're trying to move mid seconds and just trying to increase that value, or late first and just trying to get guys that are going to be worth more down the stretch.
And I'm also a big believer of getting more darts to throw at the board too. I think third rounders and fourth rounders now are becoming a bit more prominent, or fantasy relevant. I'm going to go through the numbers now with you. Hang on, let me just bring it up. The first round hit percentage rate. I think this is very crucial information.
Yep.
I'm loading up. So first round hit rate potential is 45.8%. Second round hit rate is 30.6%. Third or later hit rate is 9.3%. That's rough numbers. But in saying that, not every pick is guaranteed. So I want as many darts on the board as I can possibly get. So if you are in a position where you've got like a late first rounder and you're rebuilding because you've traded into that position, maybe trade back. Maybe you get a couple of second rounders on that same draft and draft some wide receivers. I think staying active in the trade market, even throughout the year, it's like a stock market. Buy high or sell high and buy low. You have to be able to know when to sell at the right time, buy at the right time. And as you said, mate, Brandon Ayuk's a nice little piece to buy at the moment. I mean, again, if you're rebuilding, he's not going to help you out immediately. So, I truly believe it's like a stock market. You just got to be able to be all over at the right time, staying active, and buying when you possibly can.
And just to touch on that third round kind of hit percentage of 9% or whatever it was you said, that's just for the general consensus, for the general public. If you're staying wide in and you're capitalizing and watching the film, putting in the work, your chances of picking someone that's going to hit in that third round are going to be a lot higher than the rest of your league mates. We're going to be dropping content throughout the year that in the third round, or especially getting closer to the rookie draft at the end of April, those third round picks, they could come in handy. And there's such a throw in. Not a lot of people, especially contending teams or people who think that they're contending teams, they'll throw third round picks in for anything. I always get a little bit greedy when I'm kind of sending trades. I'll kind of put a little feelers out. What do you think of this one and whatnot? And I'll always just ask for a little extra third on top. Also, I'll just throw in that third as well, and let's get it done.
But I love that though, because those third rounders, mate, fourth rounders is the same thing. If you can get an extra fourth rounder, I know it doesn't seem much on paper, and it really isn't. It really isn't on paper. But mate, the last couple of years in the fourth round, we've had Puka Nacua go and Bucky Irving, right? Yep. They're two dynasty studs for forever. They are so damn good. Puka Nacua especially is pretty much a top 5 wide receiver for, he is top 5, top 6. Mate, I'm going to mention these players that have gone over the last 3 years in third and fourth rounders. We've got Chase Brown. We've got Kyren Williams. We've got Sam Laporta. As I said, Bucky Irving and Puka Nacua. Jalen McMillan, who's showing a bit of hype about him. What else do we have here? 2022, we had Brian Robinson was a third round pick. Pacheco was a fourth round pick. So, all these players, these are all the last players in the last 3 years. They all have plenty of fantasy value. So if you can get as many darts as possible, you're going to be able to hit 1, 2, 3. Watching tape, you might even hit more than that, depending on what you like. Mate, I was massive on Puka Nacua coming into the draft. As I said, I've said this a couple of times now, but Matrix keeps hitting me up every single rookie draft and going, mate, what do you like in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round? Tell me what you like. And I said, mate, Puka Nacua, I've watched a bit of tape. This guy's got potential to be really good. You know, the Rams had no one there. They had bloody Cooper Kupp and no one else. Wide receiver too needy. If anything, Puka Nacua could have been that man, just by opportunity alone. Matt Stafford's the quarterback, so it's a friendly QB for wide receivers. And bang, look at him now. He's top 5 QB. So it's staying active, watching tape, looking at landing spots. Landing spots is massive as well.
It's a big deal,
Bucky Evans,
for sure.
same thing, mate. Bucky Evans, same thing. Rashad White had a lot of question marks going into last year, and Bucky Evans took that role and ran with it. No pun intended.
Yeah. And just to touch on Puka Nacua, you paid a 4th for him. What's he worth now? You know, two first plus at least. So yeah, the more dart throws and even looking at those picks, those late 3rd, 4th round picks, you don't need to use them on players. I like to kind of, if you build up that kind of value or those kind of draft capital, when it comes to your rookie draft, you can use those players those later picks to kind of move yourself up or reposition within that draft. Because when it comes down to draft day, I know everybody gets a little bit of hot fever for it. They're trading players that they probably shouldn't for 3rd round picks. You can even capitalize on stuff like that. So don't just think I've got this 3rd round pick, I have to pick a player with it. Use it to manipulate your draft. You know, even if you want to pick up a little bit of a sleeper, like, you know, Trey Benson, if you load up, like I mentioned earlier, use a 3rd round pick for him. You don't need to, you know, if there's no one that you like in that 3rd round, but someone else is very keen on someone, capitalize on that value and cash in.
Mate, Roma Dunze.
Great target,
especially for rebuilding teams. I mean, he's probably not going to help you out next year too much. They've got a lot of receivers there that will be, you know, well, a lot of mouths to feed as such. But he's going to be prominent one day. He's going to be. I really like Roma Dunze, but I'm talking for rebuilding teams. He's the cheapest cost right now, without giving you 3 or 4 wins based off his performance alone. You know what I mean? So, and even on that, mate, as well, like, I think trading within the draft is also really, really important. I mean, draft picks right now are at an absolute premium. We go through phases throughout a season where draft picks versus players, there's the value keeps dropping and going up and everything like that. So, you know, trade deadlines are such, player values are at an absolute sky high. So people trade picks like they're nothing in the trade deadline, right? Like they just go like nothing. But when we get around to rookie draft season like we are now, we're probably about a month away from the rookie draft and probably a month or 2 away from, you know, rookie drafts really starting to kick off as such. Draft picks are an absolute premium. They're hard to get. People were getting DJ Moore for nothing last year because they liked what they liked out of, you know, let's say
Keon Coleman.
Yeah, they like Keon Coleman.
First,
I'll give you DJ Moore for him. I mean, albeit DJ Moore had a lackluster year, but that'll change. But yeah, that's a classic example. That's a classic example where you can actually try and get a high end player. Chris Olave is another one, as I said before, mate. He's the cheapest price possible. And if someone had a hard on for a top running back in the class, he might only cost you 108, 109. And that's what I call a bit of a mini rebuild, because I think Olave is extremely, extremely talented, and we'll see him close to his best again next year.
Yeah, and those young wide receivers, like Olave and Odunze, like you said, their values are going to rise. Like where they are now, it will not stay like that. All it takes is a couple of big games. All it takes is, you know, for Olave, he's back healthy. If I think there'll probably still be Derek Carr there at the Saints throwing in the ball. All it takes is a couple of big games from him, and his value just shoots through the roof compared to where it is now. You know, capitalize on that ambiguity of people not knowing or not really kind of a little bit too scared off from the point. Capitalize on it. We know that the market is going to change on these players, and especially for rebuilding teams, you want, like we mentioned earlier, you want to build around those young wide receivers where we can see their value growing substantially as the year progresses.
And then once you've got these wide receivers, a stable crew of wide receivers, you can go out and go get your running backs, start drafting them, start trading for them. As I said, I like trading running back when they hit about 26, 27. I've had enough of them.
Yep.
By then, I'm trading them for maximum value. I've got Josh Jacobs in one of my leagues at the moment. I am contending, so he probably will stay on my team, but I will be fielding offers for him at least as well, because I think he's probably got a year or two until he's out of his window. I like to retool, try and get a nice younger running back out of this draft. Hey, it might not work out for me, but I'll try that as well. But yeah, mate, I think rebuilding, and you have to look at your league as a whole as well. I think every league's different. Every league has different profiles as such. In our League of Insight, Dynasty of Insight as such, we got the Whisperer out there who's scoring 20 points a game. He's really embraced the rebuild, but he owned nearly every first round pick in the draft. And as I said, it's running back. Well, it's full of running backs, so it's going to be interesting to see what he does in this draft. If I was him, I'd be trading out of the draft personally.
For sure.
Or drafting Ted McMillan, drafting Sanders, and then trading back out of it. But yeah. And look, he's scoring 20 points a game. Another dynasty league that I'm in, the worst scorer in the league is 100 points in that league, and that's 20 or 30 points worse than anyone else. So he's well off the pace. I mean, the Whisperer in our league's 80, 90, 100 points off the pace. He's got a different approach approach I've never seen personally. But
he's fully committed to it. Fully committed to the rebuild.
He's fully committed. He's only got Jerry Jeudy on his roster. Everyone else is not really a piece. So he's going to have to field 10 positions in a draft, which is going to be hard to get. But hey, if he nails them all, he's going to be bloody good.
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, he doesn't need to do it all in this year's class. Move back, target those young wide receivers. Yeah, like you said, there's the quarterbacks in this class aren't anything. If he needs a quarterback, keep trading back. Just keep kicking that one down the road. Stay within that 2 to 3 year window. And yeah, definitely running backs when you're rebuilding, that is the absolute last thing that you want to have on your roster. For instance, I'm rebuilding at the moment in one of my leagues. I've got James Cook. He's my only running back, and I need a lot more help moving him off as soon as I can. I've been fielding a heap of offers. Sadly enough, it's not too active of a league, and it's a little bit too far away from season start. So, but you get that. Every league's different. You're in some leagues that are super active and they're just absolute degens, which we absolutely love. Being degens ourselves. So yeah, every league is different. Have a holistic approach. Look towards your young wide receivers and young quarterbacks as your core, and then just look at draft picks and building up that assets. And yeah, those future first, they're 2027 first, they're just going to accrue value on your roster just over time, purely.
If we're talking about players to sort of target here, I think, and you made a tweet on social media the other day, and he won't cost a hell of a lot at the moment. Justin Fields is the classic example of buying him at a reasonable price. We know his fantasy upside is extremely high. He's a running back or running back / QB. He's still not a bad passer, but the rushing yards is where he makes his money in fantasy football. So, mate, I don't know what he's going to cost you, but you could almost get him for a late first, early second at this point. And really, that's one QB that you could, one pick you could trade out of where there's a running back landing spot as such, who might need a running back because they're needy at that position, and you can land yourself a Justin Fields, who's still relatively young and still plenty of upside. Played really, really well for the Steelers in those first 6 games last year.
Yeah, average just over 21 points per game. As a quarterback, which is up there with the best of them. And all it takes with his value at the moment, a late first, early second, all it takes is a couple of games in that next year where he scores a couple of 20s in a row or whatnot, and his value just skyrockets, especially in super flex leagues, people overvaluing the quarterback position. Like you mentioned, still very young, still a lot of potential. And I know last year, even during that kind of stint where he had those 6 games, people were offering me a couple of firsts for Justin Fields. I was a little bit too enamored. I had Justin Fields from the start, drafted him as a rookie, so I was a little bit wanted to hold on to him. But that's where his value was. So what's to say if he has a hot start to start the year as the main quarterback for the Steelers, he could be worth 2 firsts after a month or so next year. So
Michael Penix, cheap option at the moment. I'm a bit of an unknown. JJ McCarthy, cheaper option at the moment, unknown. Like there's plenty of QBs, and QBs are such a hard position to address in Superflex leagues. But there's some QBs there that I'd be looking at that won't cost you an arm and a leg. That could give you, I wouldn't say maximum value as such, but they can give you a head start to the right direction. Because you might be able to bundle them up in a couple of years and trade them with a pick and try and get someone like a Kyler Murray or something like that. Jordan Love, Drake May, depending on how he goes. But it's a stock market, mate. You have to buy at the right time and you got to sell at the right time. It's crucial. It really is crucial.
Yeah, and you've got to stay active. Like we've been saying all through, all through this episode, is you've got to stay active. You've got to stay locked in. We absolutely love Dynasty Fantasy Football because, like Maverick touched on earlier, it's all year round. And this, I feel like this part of the year where, we were a couple of months away from the rookie draft, this is where a lot of those Dynasty managers that are active can capitalize and improve their rosters because a lot of people aren't keeping up to date with it, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
It's a long season for Dynasty, but you've got to capitalize on those windows if you want to improve your roster.
Well said, mate. While I finish this one off, a bit of housekeeping, I would imagine, to finish this one off, mate.
Yep.
We do have a Patreon running at the moment. Over the off season, we'll be getting involved in the Patreon. We've got some ideas on the works, but I'm probably going to be doing an episode a week, Patreon viewers only. You can join me if you like. But one a week, I reckon, try and get some content in there. We have a WhatsApp group in there where we talk pretty much daily about news, fantasy news, what to trade for, what looks good. So if you need any help with that, there's a WhatsApp group. It's all in our Patreon linked above. It's free to join at the moment. So welcome to join at any stage and join in on the conversation, especially now when there's a lot of news dropping on, DK Metcalf and the likes of that. You can probably try and go get him in a bargain for fantasy football because no one knows where he's going to go yet. So, as I said, join our WhatsApp, get involved in our Patreon, free to join. Mullin, mate, stay safe out there, mate. It's going to be a rough couple of days, but you'll be right, mate.
I will, mate. I'm loaded up on alcohol, so I should be covered for the next couple of days.
Paper?
If this, toilet paper. I got lucky this morning, actually. There was a little bundle left, but just to touch on what you mentioned there, Maverick. If you guys love fantasy football like we do, and you don't sleep during the off season, jump in. Join our Patreon. It's Patreon. It's free. Like Maverick touched on. Best place to be, our WhatsApp. We're going to try and be very active in there. If you guys have any questions or any kind of trade targets that you want some advice on or trade values as well, if you're not too sure, or even if you have a trade offer come through and you're not too sure about it, send it through to us. We're more than happy to have a look, kind of give our little bit of 2 cents and try and find a counter. And we're here to help you guys improve your leagues. We absolutely love it. I know I do. Sorry for speaking on your behalf, Maverick, and I'm sure you do as well. We love Dynasty NFL football. Absolutely love it. So join in. It's free. Also, just to mention, if you guys appreciate this video and kind of like the content that we're going to be putting out, the best free way to support us is just to like that video or even throw comments in the video as well. We'd much appreciate it. We'll answer everything and very keen.
5-star review as well also helps it.
Please,
that'd be the community, mate.
Yep.
It broadens us out.
Yep.
But we got plenty of content coming. It's only February, so it's kind of all Feb and March as such. It's sort of hard at the moment to find some content, but we will find some content. I'll have an episode a week in there, and we'll get something rolling and try and help you out as best as we can. But we got plenty of things happening. The rookie draft board is going to happen over the next month or two, where we're going to launch that into the Patreon for free. And then we're obviously going to have some draft boards when the season comes along, all ranked, probably 150 to 200 players, depending on how deep your league is. We'll probably do 200 players. Rank them all individually. We're going to have some leagues in there when the drafting season comes along, and everything like that. So we'll come to an agreement to what we want in there. But there's going to be plenty of content over the off season and especially going into the season as well. You won't want to miss it. So see you next week, Mullin. Appreciate you joining me. Stay safe, mate. And the cyclone won't know what's hit you if it's come anywhere near you. So
I'll be ready. I'll be ready for it, mate. My hands will
He's
be up.
trading some first round picks to him and saying,
yeah,
let's go.
Cyclone Alfred, he will end with me. So yeah, we'll thanks for time, Maverick, and everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, we'll be back next week as always.
Cheers, lads.